you know that exposure to sun for more than 10 hours per week is equal to perceived age of 11.25 years? Here we can see clear differences between these two identical twins. They are both exposed to sun for more than 10 hours per week, but the result is clearly different. So here I am, Siti Aminah binti Abdul Rahman Pavarasan, and I'm going to present the abstract of our research. First, we will start with the abstract of this research. So this research aims at finding out the knowledge, attitudes and practices of sunscreen product usage among unique LRCMP students. A survey was carried out on 100 preclinical students of unique LRCMP from various courses as the respondents. So the data was collected through Google Forms, which was spread on within 10 days. It's also supported by the results of the interview of us with Puan Fatin Naziha binti Samsuri, which is a pharmacist and also a manager at a pharmacy Auni Medicare. The results suggested the majority of them have adequate knowledge on sunscreen usage, as most of the students answered positively for the questions. According to the analysis of the questions, the majority of the attitudes were scored in a way that suggested a positive attitude towards the use of the sunscreen, which promotes high practices of sunscreen among students. In addition, the findings was only applied in unique LRCMP students where this research was conducted. So it does not represent all medical students in Indonesia. Therefore, there should be an expansion of scope of respondents and conduction of similar research in different universities, including respondents from a variety of categories, ages, and geographical locations, in order to get a broader and more accurate representation and a more improved data collection.
Hello, today I'll be presenting the background of study, problem statement, research objectives, the research questions, and also the significance of this study. So we'll start with the background of study. UV radiation is an energy that is produced by the sun, which can be harmful to us humans, especially to us Malaysians, as we are commonly exposed to sunlight. And this study will show how the sunscreen products usage will help to reduce the risk. And also, this study will include the point of views of students regarding the usage of sunscreen products. Next is the problem statement. The students are content to take this matter lightly due to the lack of research in knowledge, attitude and practices on sunscreen product usage among students. The research objective for this study is to evaluate the knowledge, attitudes and practices on sunscreen product usage among unique LRCMP students. Following the objective is the research questions. The questions are: what are the knowledge of the students on sunscreen product usage? The second is: what are the attitudes of the unique LRCMP students? And the last question is: what are the practices of unique LRCMP students? The last point on my part is the significance of the study. The significance in this study is to assess the knowledge, attitudes and practices on sunscreen product usage among unique LRCMP students. This study is performed to spread conception and knowledge how sunscreen product usage provide protection for the skin. That's all from me. Thank you.
Chapter 2 will explain on the factors of sunscreen product usage, its effects and the prevention method. It begins with the factors of sunscreen product usage, presence of SPF properties in sunscreen products that help people's skin from getting sunburn, exposure to excessive UV light from sun in Malaysia that could predispose people to skin cancer, the fact that there is no age restriction to risk of skin cancer, and peer influences on the behavior of wearing sunscreen products are the main factors that lead to the usage of sunscreen products. The first literature review to support is written by Nick S. in 2001. The higher the SPF value, the higher protection the sunscreen gives to people to prevent skin from getting sunburn. This statement from an article shows that people choose to use sunscreen products, especially with a high SPF value, to prevent their skin from getting sunburn, as sunscreen has a property of preventing UV rays from burning our skin. The second literature review to prove is by Loyal J, written in 2018. 2018, countries with a high melanoma incidence should keep an eye on how often people apply sunscreen, especially in all-time summer country where there is high sun exposure. This shows that people in countries that are continuously exposed to bright sun like in Malaysia are using sunscreen because they are concerned about the possibility of getting skin disease like melanoma. The third literature review is to prove by Des written in 2020. He suggests that all skin types and ages should regularly wear sunscreen with an SPF of 30 or higher. According to the American Academy of Dermatology, despite the fact that white people are more likely to develop skin cancer than persons with a darker complexion. This shows that people with a lighter complexion like Asia and people of all ages have to consider using sunscreen as it will help with reducing sun exposure and skin cancer. The last literature review to support is written by Irene in 2009. They found that 13.3% of students use sunscreen frequently or always most of the time. According to the research on the prevalence and correlates of sunscreen usage among US high school students, this statement study proved that usage of sunscreen, especially among adolescents and young adults, are also influenced by peers. Next, we move on to the effects of sunscreen product usage. The use of sunscreen has offered so many advantages and good effect on people, from preventing tan and skin cancer, repairing damaged skin barriers, and slowing the process of aging. There are 3 literature reviews that support this statement. The first one is written by Adele in 2007, which stated that sunscreen can safely and successfully prevent the development of squamous cell skin cancers when used as an additional measure to protect skin from damaging UV exposure. This statement shows that sunscreen, when used from the right type of sunscreen products, can prevent not only sunburn and tan but also can reduce the risk of development of cancer because it helps protect the skin from dangerous UV exposure. The second literature that supports is by Yu that stated sunscreen use is a crucial adjuvant therapy and the cornerstone of melasma treatment since it can reduce the melanin formation, minimize skin irritation, safeguard the skin barrier, prevent recurrence of the condition, and some moisturizing components included in the sunscreen can aid in repairing skin barrier function. This literature written by Yu has proved that sunscreen usage alone can help improve skin barriers of people who have damaged skin than having to use other types of skincare products. The third literature is by Maria in 2013. She suggests that in a healthy middle-aged man and women, wearing sunscreen regularly slows the aging process of their skin. This literature explains that daily usage of sunscreen can reduce the likelihood of skin aging as time goes by and preserve a healthy young-looking skin in people. Last but not least is to discuss and prove that using media, science fact, and health education programs to spread health awareness as a preventive measure and to promote sunscreen usage is very likely to be effective, because this proves that there's a literature written by Thomas in 1977. He suggests that the risk of melanoma skin cancer is related to annual UV exposure and the risk of non-melanoma skin cancer is related to lifetime cumulative UV exposure. This proves that the usage of sunscreen can help to reduce the amount of damage UV rays from sun exposure offers to the skin. Another literature review that can support is in 2010 that written by Ahmad. It stated that research done in a community to determine the awareness of sun exposure and use of sunscreen, and they found that the use of sunscreen is at a low rate according to the survey, despite having a fair amount of awareness about the risks associated with excessive sun exposure. For From this literature, this makes a higher education program necessary as a preventive measure and encourage more people to regularly use sunscreen as it offers many benefits. Lastly, is written in 2014 by Ventola. She suggests that as doctors use social media to promote patient healthcare education, social media can help patients have better access to healthcare information and other educational tools. This suggests that the awareness of using sunscreen product is to maintain health using social media is widely practiced by health professionals nowadays. That result in a community where sunscreen usage is normalized among social media users, especially as a main step in a skincare routine.
Okay, so today I will present about the research methodology. So for the research design, we use the qualitative and the quantitative analysis where the data collected through the interviews and the numerical form. So for the target population of this study is the preclinical student of the UNICA LRCMP. So by implement the simple method of the random sampling, a sample of 100 preclinical students from the UNICA LRCMP are chosen to be part of our respondent. So why we use the simple method of random sampling? It is because it is significantly simpler and take much less time to collect the data from a sample of the population as compared to the complete population. Okay, so we have two data collection instruments. So the first one is the interview. So for interview, we have it consists of one part of set question about the knowledge, attitude and practice of sunscreen usage among the UNICA LRCMP student. So it does not consist of any scale and the analysis procedure is interpret the data from the interview. So the next data collection instrument that we use is the survey form. So the survey form is by using the Google form and it consists of four parts of set question. The first part is about the respondent demographic. The following part contain three segments of question about the knowledge, the attitude and practice of sunscreen usage. And then the scale that we use is Likert scale. So all the answer in the last scale of the 1 which is strongly disagree, 2 disagree, 3 neutral, 4 agree, 4 strongly agree. So the reason we use this scale is because it is easy to understand by the respondent and commonly used in identifying the result within the quantitative research. So the analysis procedure that we use is we analyze the frequency which the highest and the lowest score or percentage from the data provided.
Hi everyone, my name is Ahmad Faris Daniel bin Muhammad Sazali and I will be talking about the summary and analysis of finding on instrument number 1 survey form on the demographic. So let's go. So first thing first, we have the gender slide. So between the male and the female, we can clearly see that in the pie chart that the most gender responded we can see is the female side, which is around 61% out of the responses, out of 105 responses, and the lowest responses was from the male side, and which is around 39% out of the 105 responded. Alright, so going on to the second slide, which is the slide about age, and what we can find in this pie chart of age is that the gender respondent mainly falls on the age of 21 to 22 years old, which is around 72.4% out of the 105 responses, and the most lowest percentage of respondent age was 4.8, which came from the 25-year-old and above. Alright, for this last slide, we'll be talking about the program. So basically, what we found on this result is that majority of the respondents are actually from the Bachelor of Medicine and Bachelor of Surgery, which in short term we called it the MBBS, and the percentage of this respondent is about 50.5%, which is half of the response. And then the least most respondent we found from the questionnaire are actually from the Diploma of Physiotherapy, which is about around 1.9% of the respondent only who answered the questionnaire. Okay. So over here on this slide, we'll be talking about the summary and analysis of finding, however, on the research questions result. So the first research question was, what is the knowledge of the sunscreen product usage among the UniKL students? So let's go. So first thing first, the statement number one, which is the first statement, is I know that sunscreen is effective at preventing sunburn. So on this statement, we found that most of the respondents respond with strongly agree, which is around 68.6%, and the most lowest percentage we found was 1% and 1.9% who responded disagree and strongly disagree respectively. Okay, so going on to the statement number two, which is I believe that sunscreen is effective at preventing skin cancer. We found that in this statement, it is recorded 60% of the respondent answered strongly agree, and it is being the majority of it, while around 0% and 1% of the respondent responded with disagree and strongly disagree respectively. Okay, for statement number three, which is I believe that sunscreen is effective at preventing signs of aging. So in this statement, we found that majority of respondents answered about 53.3%, which is from the total number, answered strongly agree, and then about 1% only is recorded on the answer of disagree and strongly disagree. Alright, going on to statement number four, which is I'm aware that sunscreen is needed on a cloudy or rainy day. So in this statement and in this research, we found that majority, around 26.7% of the respondent answered agree on wearing sunscreen on cloudy or rainy day, and while 11.4% of them answered strongly disagree on the statement. And finally, going on to the last statement for the review question number one, which is I understand that SPF stands for sun protection factor. So in this statement, there is about 65.7% of the respondent who answered strongly agree, and we can find that 1.9% and 2.9% of the respondent responds with disagree and strongly disagree respectively also. So over here on this slide, we'll be talking about the summary and analysis of finding, however, on the research questions result. So the first research question was, what is the knowledge of the sunscreen product usage among the UniKL students? So let's go. Okay, so going on to the first statement of the research question number two, which is I believe my family has influenced me to wear sunscreen. So in this statement, we find that majority of the respondent, which is about 32.4% of the total responses, answered strongly agree, and then 13.3% is recorded on the answer of disagree and strongly disagree. Going on to the next statement, which is statement number two, I believe my friends have influenced me to use sunscreen. So in this statement, it is recorded that 45.7% of the respondents answered strongly agree, and it's being the majority, while around 8.6% and 1.9% of the respondents who responded with disagree and strongly disagree respectively. Next statement is statement number three, and I think the media encouraged me to wear sunscreen. So for this statement, we can see that the majority of the respondents has responded strongly agree, which accounts for the total of 43.8%, and the lowest percentage of the respondents we found was 4.8%, and whom responded with disagree. Statement number four, which is I believe that I should recommend others to use sunscreen. So for this statement, we found that in majority, about 60% of the respondents answered strongly agree, and then being 1.9% answered strongly disagree, and 0% answered disagree. Last but not least, statement number five, which is I believe that sunscreen can prevent skin cancer due to excessive sunlight exposure. So on this statement, we found that majority of the respondent answered strongly agree, which is 64.8%, and then we can see only 1% is recorded on the answer of disagree and strongly disagree respectively. And that is all for me. Going on to the next presenter, which is my friend Ayman. Let's go.
So, Assalamualaikum to my respective lecturers, Sir Shahir. So, today I will be presenting regarding the summary of findings and also analysis with regards to instrument 1, which is the survey form that we have been circulating in the Google form to draw out the students of Unical RCMP. I will be covering the research, the findings and also the analysis. For research question 3, what is the practices towards sunscreen products usage among UNICAL RCMP students? Okay, so the first statement is, so we'll proceed with the first statement, which is I often use sunscreen once a day. So we can actually see that almost half of the students that actually answered, which compromises of 46.7%, actually strongly agree with using sunscreen once a day. We proceed with the number 4, which is the agree with 20%, and then neutral because some of them on and off 14.3%. Next is 10.5% for the disagree, and also the last one, and around 9 people strongly disagree with using sunscreen once a day. So if the second statement, I usually apply sunscreen before attending lectures. So for this, strongly agree, a whopping of 62% users they strongly agree with using applying sunscreen before attending lectures with and also it follows with 27.6% of others of agreeing using sunscreen. Another of 3.8% will be neutral, 3.8% with disagree, and also 2.9 or 3 people strongly disagree or they did not apply any sunscreen before attending any of the lectures. The third statement is I will apply sunscreen before doing outdoor activities or before exposing myself to sunlight. So these charts actually show that there are a lot of people in our respondents that actually practice using sunscreen before doing or any activity which makes them exposed to the sunlight and also sun rays. So the percentages are 74.3 for strongly agree, and another 18.1% for agree, and only 1% of the student said they have neutral beliefs on this, and the remainder of 7 people they did not or they disagree and also strongly disagree with applying sunscreen. Okay, next statement, which I will apply sunscreen only to my face. So it so we can actually see that 52 people and also 38 people answering strongly agree and agree respectively, because mainly maybe they only know that actually sunscreen can only be applied to their face because that is their knowledge regarding sunscreen. And also the remaining of 2 people answered neutral, 5 and also 8 people answered disagree and also strongly disagree. They some of them did not apply any sunscreen, or actually they apply sunscreen other than their face. So for the last statement, I will choose my sunscreen based on my skin type. So for 58, for strongly agree, 58 people, and for agree, 32 people, 32 students, they answered as strongly agree and also agree with choosing the sunscreen based on their skin type. So it actually shows that they actually know what they are doing, because they are mainly concerned with regards to actually not trying to destroy or causing any damage to their skin. and another 11 people are very neutral regarding this choosing the sunscreen based on their skin type, and there are only 4 people with disagree because maybe they actually know what their skin type is, but they did uh, apply sunscreen to their skin. So, to continue my presentation, I will proceed with the instrument two, which is the industrial interview, which comprises of the what we interviewed and also what we asked to the industrial expert regarding our topic, which is knowledge, attitudes, and practice of sunscreen product usage among UNIKL RCMP students. So for the first question, we ask the expert, industrial expert, which is Miss Fatin. We ask regarding what is her background, and we ask, can you please tell us a little bit about yourself and also your experience in the pharmaceutical field? So she told us she is a University Kebangsaan Malaysia UKM graduate with a degree in Faculty of Pharmacy, and she currently now works as a pharmacist and manager at the pharmacy Auni Medicare in Meru. So, after graduating, she was first stationed in Hospital Ipoh in 2012, and after 2 years, she moved to Pejabat Kesihatan in Johor. So, after 4 years, she was transferred to Hospital Selangor, and in August of 2018, she started to work as a pharmacist in Pharmacy Auni Medicare. So, there are two types of sunscreen, sunblock and which are sunblock and chemical substances. So sunscreen is used to protect our skin from UV light and also radiation. So there are two types of UV. The first one being UVA and UVB. So UVA is a type of UV that can actually speed up skin aging, while UVB is a type of UV that can cause skin burns. So the higher the SPF, the more likely it can protect our skin for a longer time depending on exposure duration. She also told us that different sunscreen is uh, differently used regarding with regards to sports players and also non-sports players, because some sports players, as we know, they are doing sports outdoors, so they might need more extra protection towards the UV rays. So we move on with the third and fourth question. So what are the third and fourth question? So what are the correct ways to actually apply sunscreen and the correct amount of sunscreen suitable for students? So she told us the steps. The first one being measure it with the fingertip unit. Okay, so and then next is minimum amount of it is the minimum amount for sunscreen is about 2 units of a finger, and 2 units for face and neck, and another 2 units for the other body parts. So for your face, it is better to actually use a cream type of sunscreen, and you need to wash your face and also apply toner before actually applying sunscreen. And it is important to actually reapply the sunscreen every 2 to 3 hours. So next, what are the common mistakes made by students when it comes to using sunscreen? So she told us that it's actually recommended to use sunscreen every day, and the most common mistake is that students only use sunscreen when they need to go outside. And so it is actually highly suggested to actually wear sunscreen even in the house. And another mistake is using sunscreen without knowing your skin type, as it can cause breakout and also acne. So we'll proceed with the fifth and sixth question. So based on your observation, some students actually practice putting on makeup after applying sunscreen. So we asked her what is her opinion about applying makeup after sunscreen. So she told us that there is actually no problem with applying makeup after sunscreen, but you must give it time for the sunscreen to actually be absorbed by the skin. And there are a lot of makeups actually out there with built-in SPF, so it actually kind of protects the skin while you are wearing makeup. And the next question is, what is your advice in choosing suitable sunscreen products for students? So the first step or the first advice is to choose a sunscreen that is actually compatible with your skin type. It's either you have oily skin or you have sensitive skin. And next, it is better to actually choose sunscreen with both SPF and also PA++, as it provides double protection, as we know that SPF is the sun protection factor. And thirdly, for sensitive skin, it's better to use a sunscreen that is with paraben free, fragrance free, because some of the with low alcohol ingredient, because as we know that these sometimes these chemicals can actually cause irritations to the skin, and it can worsen any breakouts or any acne. So moving with the 7 and 8 question, so would you actually encourage the students to use sunscreen in daily lives, and why is that so? So she answered yes. This is because due to hot weather, and also when the weather is hot, because the sun is blazingly uh, radiating the UV radiations. And this can be dangerous as it increases the risk of skin cancer. So for the eighth question, do you think sunscreen is actually able to protect skin from the blue light from electronic devices, i.e. phones and also tablets? So blue light is actually a kind of radiation, but they have a different wavelength and energy than UV light, and it's not as dangerous as UV light. But if there is any long exposure like playing games, then it can actually cause skin aging. So you need to actually take like intermittent breaks in between using devices. And yes, sunscreen is able to actually protect the skin from blue light. So we proceed with the 9 and 10 question. So what are the side effects and also risks of any chemical irritability to certain students? So the most common side effects are skin irritations, because some of the products can actually cause acne or make the skin dry and itchy. And this shows that it's actually a sign to use a different kind of sunscreen. So the 10th question, can you share with us any cases or experiences regarding the usage of sunscreen that you had throughout your career as a pharmacist? So she told us the most common, like the experience that she has with these problems regarding sunscreen is due to usage of unregistered sunscreen products, because it causes skin irritation, because some of the products actually have mercury. And so no skincare products can actually be used in the meantime, as it we need to let the skin heal naturally. Okay. So with the last question, so as a pharmacist, what is actually your advice to students who want to start incorporating sunscreen in their skincare routine? So the first advice that she told us, it actually depends on the student's budget. And secondly, make sure to buy sunscreen in an official drugstore or a pharmacy. And thirdly, the last one, she told us that it actually also depends on the skin type, because not every sunscreen is suitable for all skin type. And I guess that is all from me. Thank you.
Assalamualaikum and hi, my name is Arif Zuhaidi and I'll be continuing the presentation with regards to discussion on research findings. Where in our research, it is about the knowledge, attitude and practices of sunscreen product usage among UniKL RSMP students. I'll start off moving on to the first part of the discussion on our research. I'll be discussing on the knowledge of the respondents. So in general, a great number of them shows good knowledge when it comes to the matter of sunscreen products and their knowledge on their function as well as their importance with regards to the health and also the beauty aspects of it. So they exhibit good knowledge throughout the questionnaire. So a great number of them knows the usage of them, they knows their effectiveness as well as their ability in reversing the signs of aging. So their general ideas of in SPF, which is sun protection factor, and as well as the levels that they are suitable in different setting, uh, should that they have they are well versed when it comes to sunscreen product usage. Whenever we want to compare it with the past research as well as the industry interview, past researchers have backed all of the claims by all of the claims made by respondent through our questionnaire such as by UW as well as from Loyal KJ in both respective years of 2022 and 2018. These two researchers extensively supports the claims by the respondent that sunscreen products are able to aid in skin repair processes as well as preventing skin melanoma progression, which is a type of skin cancer. Next up is the attitude of the respondents towards the sunscreen product usage. So next, the attitude. In in general, the respondent portrayed positive attitudes on most of the questions asked, but also responded neutrally with regards to one specific questions, which is whether they do agree on using the sunscreen product excessively, and they generally stayed on the neutral side where they neither disagree nor agree for this kind of statement. So most probably they do understand that using the sunscreen at an adequate amount is just all of us need. It's just what we all need. And primarily in this part of in this section of the questionnaire, we are able to identify that there are a few parties that are responsible in influencing the practice that are influencing the practice of some particular person when it comes to the sunscreen product usage. So some of the parties are namely the family, their friends, the social media, as well as the healthcare professionals. As been discussed by the previous research, which carried by Irene H in 2009, where peers have uh, peers are the one that played the biggest and the most significant role in influencing a particular person to start using sunscreen. And yes, for our research, we do agree as 48% of our respondents should that they are strongly agree on this particular uh, research back information. So as well as this particular part, our respondents do want to spread their knowledge when it comes to using sunscreen product, and this indicates that they are well versed and do want to spread the do want to spread their knowledge as well as the good practice that others should carry along. So their attitude goes along also with our interview with the professionals, where it goes telly where the student understand that individuals who wants to use sunscreen products do have to consider their skin types as well as the possible harm of getting irritable when it comes to trying new sunscreen products. That is all for this part. Moving on to the next part. Moving on to the last part of our discussion on research findings with regards to the practices of the respondents on sunscreen product usage. So their practices overall vary across a relatively small amount of small size of spectrum, where in general a good amount portion of the respondents do apply sunscreen, but at a considerable rate, where they do apply it only once daily. So they are not actually practicing the right amount of right right rate of using the sunscreen product as being clinically suggested, which is at 4 hours, which is at every 4 hours. But yet they do practice it once before, in general, before they go to attend their lecture. So this relatively low level of practice, despite a good level of knowledge, have been extensively being discussed by a research made by Ahmad A in 2010, who concluded that despite a good level of knowledge, people in general have a low level of practice for sunscreen product usage due to its hassle whenever it comes to applying it at a at a rate that is being clinically suggested, as even applying it to other parts of the body that are being exposed, which are supposedly to be done, was not being carried out because of it's just not that practical for them. It's hard for them to build up their discipline up to that level where they want to keep up doing it on daily practice. That's all for this discussion part of the research findings. Thank you very much.
Now we will move to the recommendations for future researchers. So throughout this research, we have identified the knowledge, attitudes, and also practices of sunscreen product usage among RCMP students. That is also the main objective of this research. So as it demonstrates, there are a few gaps in the study. It is due to some limitations and also unanticipated issues that the researchers encountered along the preparation of completing this research. In order to improve the discovery on this topic, first, the future researchers should extend the time they spend looking for the information and also collecting data. With regards to this study, only 2 months are given for the researchers for the preparation, which is quite insufficient. Next, the future researchers should actually expand the scope of respondents and also conduct research in different universities instead of just depending on the Unicap RCMP students as the respondent. And researchers should actually gather respondents from a variety of categories, ages, geographical locations in order to obtain high quality finding. In addition, new researchers can focus on new topics within the same field, for example in skincare or maybe skincare routine and many others. So another improvement that can be done is by using limitless sources of information. As for this present study, the researchers were focusing on the free sources, low quality data of previous research and relied solely on one industrial expert to answer the research questions. Finally, the sample in this study are reliable and can be used for the next and other researches. As for the conclusion, the present study proposed that students are one of the many groups of people who have adequate exposure to the general knowledge on sunscreen products. Being one of the greatest contributors in the amount of social media users, students have been exposed to such knowledge. They are also at the right age to take responsibility for their own health. Therefore, practicing good daily self-care such as using sunscreen product is a good way in teaching oneself to be self-disciplined and also responsible. As for the respondents, generally have a positive attitude towards the usage of the sunscreen products, it will be definitely easy for them to try and use sunscreen product on daily basis. Other than that, the researchers also stated a few recommendations for the new researchers. So it is a great expectation for this study to contribute for the betterment of students and further extent to benefit the society. As more and more effort is made to increase the practice of sunscreen products in society's beauty regime, the general health of the population will keep on getting better and furthermore get the nation to live in wellness free from preventable diseases.